It's 6 p.m. on a Monday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let us begin with the headlines. President Park Geun-hye wraps up her Mongolia tour after sending a constant message on denuclearizing North Korea at the Asia-Europe meeting and laying a foundation for bilateral economic cooperation between Seoul and Ulaanbaatar. South Korea's finance minister meets with the three main parties over the government's proposed budget supplement. Yoo Il-ho urges the policymakers to pass the bill quickly for the good of the people. The Turkish president continues to crack down with a vengeance following the failed coup against his government, and voices are being raised from all corners of the globe demanding he stop using it as an excuse to target his political enemies. President Park Geun-hye returns home after attending the ASEM summit and holding bilateral talks in Mongolia. She achieved two key goals: upping international pressure on North Korea and boosting free trade for the South Korean economy. Song Ji-sun has a wrap-up of the president's trip.
President Park Geun-hye's consistent message of denuclearizing North Korea was echoed through the ASEM summit and bilateral talks with Mongolia during her 5-day stay.
북한의 핵 위협 등이 인류의 평화와 안정을 끊임없이 위협하고 있고, 우리를 분열시키는 다양한 도전들을 우리를 단합시키는 일치된 목표를 통해 극복하는 것이 무엇보다 중요하다고 생각합니다.
Leaders acknowledged the deeds, condemning Pyongyang's nuclear and missile tests in the strongest terms in the Ulaanbaatar statement. They also showed support for Seoul's initiative for peace and cooperation in Northeast Asia.
Our two countries have agreed to cooperate in denuclearizing the Korean peninsula and ensuring peace and security in the region. We'll continue those efforts on the international stage and within the United Nations.
President Park's message for expanding open trade against the rising trend of trade protectionism was also delivered to other ASEM member nations. Seoul and Ulaanbaatar set the base for free trade through their bilateral summit, agreeing to initiate joint research for the Economic Partnership Agreement, a pact similar to FTA.
It's a preemptive measure setting the ground for investment. We've built an expressway to realize the potential of economic cooperation and trade growth between the two countries.
President Park attended a business forum before flying back to Seoul to help link Korean companies with local buyers in Mongolia, saying the two countries can further boost growth in a mutually beneficial way. President Park's visit set the groundwork to enter the Mongolian market, a niche market for South Korea and a gateway linking Asia and Europe. Her drive to denuclearize Pyongyang will be helped with support from Mongolia, which also has long-time diplomatic relations with North Korea. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News, Ulaanbaatar.
Speaking at a business forum in Ulaanbaatar, President Park pointed out that Korea and Mongolia should promote their complementary economic structure for prosperity, while highlighting the potential of the two countries, with Mongolia being rich in natural resources and Korea possessing cutting-edge technology. Addressing some 300 business leaders from both countries, she also stressed the need for Korea and Mongolia to boost cooperation in infrastructure projects, as well as in other sectors such as renewable energy, healthcare, and medicine. The Korean leader added an economic partnership agreement would open a new chapter in bilateral economic cooperation and serve as a platform to boost trade and investment. North Korea has denounced a statement against its nuclear and missile programs adopted at the Asia-Europe meeting over the weekend. The regime also slammed a recent trilateral meeting between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo that condemned Pyongyang's provocations. Kwon So-hwa tells us more.
Calling it ridiculous, North Korea hit back against the joint statement adopted at the Asia-Europe meeting summit in Ulaanbaatar on Saturday. The statement condemned Pyongyang's nuclear and missile development in the strongest terms and called on the international community to thoroughly follow through with the UN Security Council resolution against the regime. North Korea's state-run Korean Central News Agency reported Monday that a spokesperson at the North's foreign ministry said that while the statement refers to Pyongyang's nuclear program as a threat to peace, the U.S. is the one destroying peace and security. The spokesperson also criticized the plan to deploy the U.S. missile defense system THAAD to South Korea. Using a similar tone, North Korea also slammed the high-level trilateral meeting between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan in Hawaii last week, again focusing its criticism on Washington and saying the meeting shows how the U.S. is trying to realize its longtime ambitions of military dominance over the region and the world. In the meantime, on the sanctions front, the pressure on Pyongyang is increasing. According to Radio Free Asia on Monday, France's report on its implementation of the UN Security Council sanctions has been recently reviewed by the Council and will soon be made public. In the 7-page-long report, Paris has reportedly expressed its commitment to abide by UN Security Council Resolution 2270 as well as the EU sanctions. It also said that it has not shipped military supplies to the north in 4 years and has added 3 individuals to its blacklist. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Coming back to South Korea, policymakers from 3 main political parties met with the nation's finance minister. Topic, the government's budget supplement. They were all on the same page. The question is when. Kim Young-gil shares with us what was discussed.
At the meeting on Monday, Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho urged the 3 main political parties to pass the government's proposed budget supplement, which is worth roughly $8.8 billion.
The government understands the current economic difficulties and will do all it can to shore up the economy and stabilize people's livelihoods. The budget supplement will support corporate restructuring and job creation efforts.
He also said the budget bill should be passed within a certain time frame, where it may not have the intended pump-priming effect on the economy. The ruling's Haenuri party said it will do whatever it can to support the budget bill. The opposition parties urged the government to prepare for the possible mid- to long-term problems that could follow from Britain's decision to leave the European Union.
The budget should help the local economy and help Korea overcome the Brexit impact.
Our party will continue to cooperate with the government to implement other economic policies.
The opposition also advised the finance ministers to strengthen the government's support for the socially and economically disadvantaged members of the population. These include people like irregular workers, the self-employed, and people in small and medium-sized companies, who are the first to be affected if the economy deteriorates. The government plans to submit the budget bill to the National Assembly next week and is hoping that the parties will pass it quickly to counter the current economic challenges the country is facing. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Let's turn our focus to Turkey now. As President Recep Tayyip Erdogan shed tears at a funeral for coup victims and vowed retribution, the international community responded with concern. Global leaders have called on the Turkish leader to refrain from using the incident to justify cracking down on his political enemies. According to our Hwang Ho-jun, several thousand people, including military personnel and judges, have already been thrown in jail.
Around 6,000 people have been arrested since Friday's coup attempt, and government officials are saying the plotters will be tried for treason. Addressing his supporters in a speech broadcast on national TV, Turkey's president called for the reinstatement of the death penalty, saying there should be no delay.
My brothers, as the state and the government, we hear your demand. We cannot ignore this demand. In democracy, whatever people say, it is done.
Turkey abolished the death penalty in 2004. Erdogan is also demanding the U.S. extradite Fethullah Gülen, an Islamic cleric currently living in Pennsylvania in a self-imposed exile for more than a decade, whom he believes is the mastermind behind the coup attempt. With the possibility of a political bloodbath looming, the international community is urging Turkey to keep calm and protect the rule of law and democracy. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
And Korean Air announced today that all flights between Incheon and Istanbul have been canceled for the day, and amid security and safety concerns, that is. The airline will decide whether to resume such flights only after assessing the political development and safety conditions there. Moving over to the U.S., 3 police officers have been shot dead in the state of Louisiana. The shooter has been identified as a 29-year-old Gavin Long, a discharged Marine sergeant who served in Iraq. His motive is not known, but there are growing concerns the incident will further aggravate racial tensions in the country. Kim Jung-soo reports.
The latest shooting in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, took place less than 2 weeks after a black man was shot by police there, and only 10 days after the sniper attack on July 7th that claimed the lives of 5 Dallas police officers. The African-American gunman killed in the shootout on Sunday has been identified as 29-year-old Gavin Long of Kansas City, Missouri. He was armed with an assault rifle and was wearing a mask and black fatigues. Officials say Long is believed to have been the only gunman, despite earlier reports saying 2 others were still at large. The shooting occurred at just before 9 a.m. local time, less than 2 kilometers from the Baton Rouge Police Department headquarters, where hundreds were arrested earlier this month while protesting the police shooting of Alton Sterling. Sterling's death has sharply heightened racial tensions in Baton Rouge and sparked a national debate on policing and race. While officers have yet to pinpoint Long's motive, investigators have found that he attended the demonstrations in Dallas after the shooting there. Long also made several YouTube videos where he claimed that he was not attached to any particular ideology and argued that police brutality cannot be solved in a peaceful manner. His recent post on Twitter also praised the Dallas shooter Michael Johnson and said that he was, quote, one of us. The governor of Louisiana, John Bel Edwards, said the gunman committed an unspeakable attack, adding that the hatred has got to stop. President Obama also condemned the murders, calling the attack cowardly and reprehensible. He also mentioned the upcoming party conventions, saying the presumptive nominees must work to bring the country together.
And that is why it is so important that everyone right now focus on words and actions that can unite this country rather than divide it further.
Obama also pledged his full support to the Baton Rouge Police Department and promised that, quote, justice will be done. Kim Jung-soo, Arirang News.
Staying in the U.S. but turning to the political domain now, Hillary Clinton has a 5-point lead over her rival Donald Trump in a recent poll heading into the National Party conventions. Our Park Ji-won updates us on the race for the White House.
Democratic Party candidate Hillary Clinton has a 5 percentage point lead over her Republican rival Donald Trump ahead of the party conventions this week and next, and despite the controversy over her email server. According to the latest poll by the Wall Street Journal and NBC News, the former Secretary of State leads her GOP rival with 46% to 41%. The poll was conducted July 9th through 13th with 8,000 registered voters. The same poll also showed that only 38% of Republican respondents said they are satisfied with Trump as their GOP nominee, while 54% of Democrats said they are satisfied with Clinton. Meanwhile, both candidates reacted to Sunday's shooting in Baton Rouge that left 3 police officers dead and 3 others wounded. Trump took to Twitter to say in one post that America is, quote, divided and out of control, and in another post he demanded law and order. Clinton said in a statement Sunday that there is no justification for violence and called for unity, saying Americans must stand together to reject violence and strengthen communities. Over in Cleveland, the stage is set for the Republican Party's national convention, and a security alert is in place to ensure it all goes off safely. And the Republican Party's 4-day national convention is set to begin Monday afternoon here in Quicken Loans Arena. All eyes are on how presumptive candidate Donald Trump will be officially nominated as the Republican presidential candidate. Park Ji-won, Arirang News, Cleveland.
Bringing our attention back to Seoul now, Korea's Fair Trade Commission has made its final decision on a local telecom operator's efforts to expand its presence as a converged media platform provider. Our Kim Ji-yeon looks beyond the outcome.
Korea's antitrust watchdog has rejected SK Telecom's bid to buy leading cable TV operator CJ HelloVision, staying with its initial decision. Earlier this month, the Fair Trade Commission said the consolidation would substantially hurt market competition, as it would greatly elevate SK Telecom's content business. The watchdog says SK Telecom would control 21 out of 23 Korea's broadcasting zones, which would make the company not only the leading mobile carrier in the country, but also a dominant presence in the country's TV broadcasting platform. The Fair Trade Commission also says it's highly likely that the company will take control over CJ HelloVision's 850,000 budget phone users with the merger. The companies say they'll accept the decision but express concern it will impact future investments in the local broadcasting sector, which is continuously evolving. The number of cable TV subscribers decreased by a near 2% in February 2015 from late 2014 to around 14.4 million subscribers. Meanwhile, the number of Internet Protocol or IPTV subscribers increased more than 20% from 2014 to more than 13 million in April. SK Telecom wants to acquire a 30% stake in CJ HelloVision, the internet television service affiliated with CJ Group, for around $440 million as part of efforts to break its reliance on the saturated telecom market. Kim Jian, Arirang News.
Volkswagen and Suzuki CMC are ordered to recall hundreds of cars and motorcycles in Korea. Seoul's land ministry says Volkswagen is recalling around 1,300 vehicles from 4 different models, including the Tiguan. The models in question have defective child locks, the device that prevents young passengers opening the back doors. Suzuki is hauling back over 500 motorcycles from 9 different models due to engine defects. Owners of vehicles or motorbikes subject to the decision can take them in for free repairs at their local service centers. That's all the time we have for you at this hour. We'll have more updates at 10 p.m. Korea time, so do join us then. Thank you for watching.